Hi, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Carrie Siggins, and I'm so glad you're here today for this very fun interview that I have for you. Today, I have Brenda Jacobsen on the show. Brenda is the president of Mindful Communications, and she is just amazing. She's in YPO. I've met her years ago. We've always stayed in touch, even though she lives in the Chicago area. And I just adore her. She is such a believer in bringing mindfulness and well-being into the workplace. And in this interview, we talk a lot about how she's doing this through her organization and how she's doing this through mindful communications. And it is right up my alley. So you can imagine that we had all kinds of fun time discussing how you bring mindfulness coaching in and how you really look at yourself as a leader and how you're showing up as your whole self to encourage your employees to show up as their whole selves too. Just a little bit more about Brenda before we move on. She's a sought after keynote speaker and a thought leader on topics related to leadership, mindfulness, and building resilience. She serves on a few boards. She's a director for LifeXT and Mindful Communications. And she also has done lots of work in the nonprofit space, in the Homeless Empowerment Project, and the National Association of Occupational Health Professionals. You're going to love this interview. She's just articulate and lovely, and her passion just comes through. And it is such a fun interview. So hang tight, and I'll be right back with Brenda. All right, everybody, I'm back with the beautiful, amazing Brenda Jacobsen. Brenda, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so tell us about yourself. Who are you, and what do you do?
My name is Brenda Jacobsen. I am a mom. Been married for almost 18 years, and I'm the president of Mindful Communications. And Mindful is this really beautiful combination of two entities that we merged in COVID. One was a consumer media brand, the other a corporate training program based in mindfulness. And so you meet me here today as Mindful Communications, a public benefit corp. And what we're here to do is bring the gifts of mindfulness to as many people as possible globally.
That's wonderful. And how did you get involved with mindful communications?
So I came into mindful through Life Cross Training, which was the corporate mindfulness program. I'd been brought on as the first full-time CEO about 4.5 years ago. And we kept bumping into this scaling challenge. We had this amazing coaching experience, but as scalable as I believe coaching is, we weren't getting to everyone. And we didn't want to remain a solution that only the kind of top elite in organization got access to. We wanted to cascade throughout the entire organization. And so we were looking for a strategic partner to help us expand our platform, to be able to offer resources that could be more cost efficient for employers and to expand our audience, to expand our reach. And we put these plans together before COVID hit, never picturing how perfectly we were positioning ourselves to support these transformational changes that we've experienced in the last 3 years. So
Yeah, yeah, and I wanna talk about that, but this is really interesting to me. So, I'm a huge believer in coaching. A lot of my employees have coaches, not just, at the executive level, and it's had remarkable results in helping both underperformers turn things around, but also helping star performers learn how to manage stress and really, excel beyond what their current capabilities. So, I'm a huge believer in it. But it is tough to scale because, basically I have like one or two coaches that I work with at that level and they can only handle so much. So tell me about that a little bit. Like how do you bring that corporate coaching in at a scalable level through an organization?
So we have decided to focus on a very specific kind of set of skills that foundationally are mindfulness. And so when people ask, are you a leadership coach or are you therapists or are you this? We're well-being coaches, we're
Yeah.
mindfulness coaches, And what we know is that you will likely be a better leader if you can be more present, if you are able to have more of an empathetic relationship with your team, with your colleagues, with your leaders. If you can connect through compassion, through a genuine caring for those that you work with and spend most of your time with. And so we put together different levels of coaching experiences. And then our largest client, which is Deloitte, actually helped us build out a technology platform where we were able to compress our coaching down to just 15-minute sessions. So we answer kind of this question of, well, there's no space in my schedule. We're working with people who already feel overwhelmed and overscheduled and overcommitted. So to say we want to layer in an additional hour per month or every 2 to 3 weeks of coaching, that can just feel like too much. So we're designed to meet people where they are and to start small and to build. And more time means more space to handle what's here for you at this moment, Carrie. And that might mean that you're worried about an aging parent or something to do with your kids or a really toxic relationship at work or all these other things that kind of just take us out of the present moment. So our coaching is really foundationally about cultivating the skill of presence and then being able to empower individuals to be more in control of how they experience their lives at work, but also outside of work. And when you think about how important it is for us to keep the people that we want to keep, as a leader, think about the value placed on an individual when they see that their company cares enough to say, we want to bring this experience to you. We want you to be able to thrive and find joy and creativity and expansiveness in your day so that you show up better at work, but you show up better to in life and all the people that you relate to in the course of that experience. So it's really fun because I will quote our participants, it can be life changing and it doesn't require a whole lot more than just being willing to explore things that can be simply integrated into your everyday activities. So it feels like this big secret that we just want to get out there, but we're finding that more and more employers are owning some responsibility around mental health. And our work is under the mental health umbrella, but we're really supporting individuals before they might need a therapist or before they might need some type of clinical intervention. So
Yeah.
it feels like a real gift. So
Yeah.
that's how we've thought about coaching. And then the scaling piece is also because we've been able to create a more affordable way with technology. The beauty of technology is scale, but we've kept that real connection with a person because we also know that that's where the transformation occurs.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a powerful thing. I just put my executive management team through the positive intelligence program.
Yeah.
And with the other fellow YPOer, I love Shazad, and I really it brings a lot of mindfulness into the picture too of when you're getting triggered and how do you bring yourself back through, whether it's through tactile, through breathing, through tensing your body, through intently visualizing something, and it's really powerful. And just having those little micro moments to help you go, oh, I'm being triggered, and this is why, and I can get it under control so it doesn't hijack me, is such a powerful thing. My team is just singing its praises, and I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I make this like scalable for my whole organization. It sounds like you guys have come up with something that really can help every single person on at an organization.
Yeah, and that can meet individuals where they are.
Yeah.
What technology is great for is scale,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
it's hard for it to feel really customized when technology is the only part of the experience.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people are offering apps, for example, and I think apps can be a really, powerful way to support integrating habits, like a daily meditation practice. But if you're not getting the support of figuring out how these things fit into your life
Yeah.
with the help of a person that you're connecting with and maybe that you feel motivated to show up for because they're your cheerleader or maybe your accountability partner, however you need to frame the relationship to stay focused on it. Otherwise, it's just too easy to let it fall off, I think, our never ending to do list. So
Yeah.
I love how today we're talking about self care, less about this spa like indulgence that we used to think about. Like, I almost felt like self care was like a dirty word. Like, oh, wow, you have time for that. Wow, life must be good for you. Now it's like, no, if we don't take care of ourselves, then we can't show up for ourselves or for anyone else that's relying on us. And I think, especially as leaders, if we're not willing to model this work, no one will truly feel safe to create the time and space to do it
Yep.
themselves. So
Yep.
I think it's, it's wonderful that you're doing, it sounds like that work with your leadership team and our the biggest success, like the clients that get the most out of investing in work like ours, they're willing to do it from, starting at the
Yep.
very top. And then how it cascades, we can get creative with and offer kind of multiple paths for engagement so that it feels curated and an experience that each individual can create. But it has to be, people have to believe that they're really being told this is important and you
Yeah.
can make time out of your day to do this
Yep.
for it to
I know.
work. I think,
I'm such a believer in it. I say my
yeah,
mantra is self-care is a discipline, not a luxury.
it
You have to
is.
do it, and really it's really important to model it, and it is. I mean, I've read an article that said that mental health is costing corporate America between like 20 and 40 billion dollars annually, with sick days and people who are unproductive because they can't show up as their whole selves at work. I mean, that's staggering. If that doesn't get business leaders' attention to say this is really important, I don't know what else does. But there's so much money that's being lost because people just feel like they don't have a safe place to say, time out, I need some help. And maybe it can be solved through something like mindfulness, but also it could require a lot bigger, more robust programs. And with the worker shortage, like, we've got to address this because we're gonna have like 6 million, we're gonna be short 6 million workers by 2030, what the reports are saying. You can't be burning people out who are like, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this because I've got mental health issues that I can't address.
Well, and I think that there's all of that is true. And I believe the companies that will really remain competitive in the future for attracting the talent that they want, they've been thinking about this. COVID may have accelerated some of those plans and investments, but the idea that we're going to continue to offer the traditional benefits package that, at best included like full coverage and health insurance at best, right? And maybe an EAP that if you were in a crisis, you could call. I just don't think those things are going to cut it anymore. It has to be beyond that. And I think that for the next generations of workers, they're not like with me where I was happy with whatever I was given when I first started working. They get it that there can be this symbiotic relationship where the employer does strategically invest in these things that help create a more balanced and joyful, happy, fulfilling life at work because that's, what we're going to see maybe more tangibly, but that spill over just into everything that we're doing. And I just don't think we have to limit ourselves in the way that we used to think about like what's the employer role versus the individual's role. I think as employers and leaders, we have to be willing to lean into and support and think really creative and innovatively about how do we care for the whole person, right? Not just physical health, but mental health, and to continue to destigmatize the need to talk about mental health in a way that people aren't judged or punished or, passed up for promotions or
Yep.
not thought about as being reliable and stable and trustworthy. Those were all things that I feel like, COVID has really accelerated the need to think differently and more holistically about caring for the people that we need to show up and deliver on our customer commitments.
So, speaking of the pandemic, and you mentioned it earlier, how has the pandemic changed your business? Are corporations really, engaging more in this? And did COVID speed this up?
Yeah, definitely. So we have the the consumer media brand. And, we've been so fortunate. We're such a trusted brand and kind of source for information that we saw huge spikes in engagement to our online content, especially around how to meditate. So if you search, we're number one organically there. And that really was because I think a lot of people were looking for ways to make sense of the chaos,
Yeah.
right? As humans, we're not hardwired to do well with the unknown. It's really difficult for us to have such overnight disruption, and we want to restabilize, right? So I think a lot of us picked up really bad habits. I know I picked up some of like binging Netflix, for example. But I think we were looking to control the things that we could control when so much seemed out of our control. So we had the consumer audience really looking for support in different ways. And then, yes, when I joined the corporate mindfulness training program that brought me to mindful, I remember I never would say the words mindfulness or meditation because I'd be in these meetings with potential clients and it would turn them off because they're like, "Oh, no, that's a little, out there. That's not what we're really up to. We're looking for more like wellness, more generally, and or maybe it was like corporate training, retention. We were kind of always trying to figure out how we fit into a benefit suite, or an HR decision makers kind of framework. And so we were always, having to kind of pick a spot that we could find without displacing a whole lot of other vendors. Now we're really leaning into we are mindfulness. And, if it's only an app you want, we're not the right solution. So our conversations have changed and we're finding far more receptivity to the idea that employers do own a piece of their team's mental health, that they want to, that's also expected. And so we can be a solution to help kind of fill in some of these gaps that exist in traditional benefits. And for the first year and a half, budgets were unstable. Everybody was freaking out, holding on to cash. And so it was hard. Fortunately, we were in a position where we could survive because I'd hate to be in this spot right now where I could look back on all the wonderful things we could have done, but we ran out of cash,
Yeah.
So we were also smart with our money, brought in a small round of investment when we merged and, kind of gave us enough to hold on, through some of that initial turbulence.
Yeah. And how about you as a leader? So you went through all of this, you joined with the merger for a new company, new role, COVID hits, you're all about mindfulness. Did you
Yeah.
practice what you preach? Like how as a leader do you incorporate this into your daily life? And is it hard?
Yeah. So just a little bit of context. I had sold the family business that I'd been running for 18 and a half years. I didn't take a break. I joined LifeXT, now Mindful, and I moved my family across the country for this role. Because remember that? We used
I
to
do.
move for
Yeah,
roles.
I do. I remember that. And
And
I remember
so
when you moved.
yeah, exactly. So 2018, I displaced all of us. We come to this new area. We decide to move out of the city for a number of reasons, mostly that centered around like schooling and kind of space for our kids. Never ever expecting, life to change overnight and kind of shut down. So I've been tested regularly. And, part of the practice for me is actually feeling the highs and lows in a way that, I was kind of trained, not really directly, but I was always trained to kind of, you're always happy and smiling, and that's great, just always that even keel, very predictable. And what part of my mindfulness practice has opened up space for is like feeling how sad and lonely COVID's been for me. I haven't been in my office. I've been in my office once in the last 2 years. And part of what brought me to this role with the people, and interacting with this dynamic, smart, driven, purpose driven team. And then merging two companies, I've never met most of my team in person, yet I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours with them on Zoom, or on video. And yeah, it's been hard, and then homeschooling and, worrying about the survival of the business and seeing my husband all the time, whom I love, but was not used to seeing all the time. And my mom lives with us. And so Yeah, it's been hard. I have definitely drawn from my practice, and it's still been hard. Everything about my routines was disrupted and changed overnight. And so we're still trying to figure it out. And what does the new normal look like for
Yeah.
us? And is there, why do I need to attach to normal, right? I remember for a while talking about post COVID as if that would be this moment where COVID was over and everything returned to what felt familiar. I don't want it to go back, Carrie.
Yeah.
I think we've made changes that have improved certainly the quality of my life, my relationship with my family, and have made things really hard. But yeah, so it's been tough. I would guess that my experience, has been similar to many of us that have just been trying to stay focused on, one foot in front of the other, but not being crippled by the fact that nothing is ever predictable, even as different as it's felt. COVID is less predictable. I never knew what was going to happen tomorrow anyway. So I'm getting more comfortable with the unknown.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of gifts in COVID. I wish that a global pandemic was not what had to provoke this, the death, the loss, those things, I wish that all didn't have to be part of it. And if I'm not, taking advantage of the learning that I've been reminded of over and over again, it feels like I haven't really been present enough to see how life can be different and how, I can choose to lead differently going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think leaders who are going to try to force going back into the old way because it's comfortable, it's what they know,
Yeah.
it's going to be such a mistake because all of this has been building. And yes, the pandemic is what sparked a lot of this change that had to happen. But I am with you. I don't want to go back. I want my employees to feel like they can show up as their whole selves, that they have balance, that they find purpose in their work and purpose in their life. And we were already doing a lot of those things, but I'm proud that there's the great resignation that's happening because people are saying that's it. I'm enough. I've had enough and this is not how I want to live my life. We need to keep our foot on the gas with this so that we can start to change the way that we think about our employees, the way we think about our leadership, because it can be such a much healthier way of living and doing business. So I'm with you. I don't want to go back to the old way. I think
Well,
lots of good things came from it.
yeah. And then I don't know if you've had this experience, but the other piece that I've had was I remember it, in my first kind of major role, feeling very uncomfortable with certain issues at work.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like I had to almost switch between like my work brain and my personal brain, or really my work heart and my personal heart. But I remember just not wanting to go in certain directions in conversations, or not wanting to talk about certain social issues, or feeling uncomfortable when people talked about being sad or scared, and or even when I being nervous about expressing that myself. And I also feel like the level of intimacy that's been created in the fact that we are literally connecting in each other's homes, right? Like you're in my house. My daughter interrupted us
Right.
earlier. And, this idea that there are these barriers and walls between these different versions of ourselves, like it's kind of a silly idea to even think about anymore. But I've also found that my team has asked for a different kind of support than I had been giving them before. And I had to, as a leader, be willing to see and be willing to be vulnerable and available in ways that I don't know that I always was.
Yeah.
And I feel really good about that. And even when I'm on the phone a lot with prospective new clients. And the best conversations that happen there, we're talking about really personal things that I just don't think I would have had those conversations so quickly before. And I appreciate when I'm meeting someone like you who's so willing to just, share it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's a new skill set really that leaders not all leaders are willing to step into,
Yep.
because I don't have all the answers. I don't know how to always be everything that people need at that moment. But if nothing else, I can be there. Right. And I can just listen and, and connect. And I think there's incredible power in that. And I think we'll continue to be iterating on what we used to call like soft skills or like EQ. I think it's much more than that. But I would say that that's also been another big change for me in COVID.
Yeah, no, I'm so with you. I think that word connection, like that's the key. We need to feel connected, and our employees want to connect with us as leaders. And there is no such thing as a perfect leader. We all have flaws. We all do things wrong. We all say the wrong things. We all have baggage. And when we put on this facade of, I'm the leader, I'm perfect, I don't have these types of conversations. You need to leave your personal stuff at home. I'm not going to go there. All we do is just build up this wall when we, in fact, ourselves are quite messy too. And so that's why I'm such a big believer in showing up with your whole self and not just being willing to embrace your own flaws internally, but to be able to talk about it openly. When I first started to share my story with my employees, it was incredibly scary. I did it in a really safe situation. We were doing a team building. It came out. I was scared, and then what it did was open up this entire different level of conversation. And the relationships I built because I was willing to say, like, hey, I used to be really screwed up. And this is how I pulled myself out of it. And then look, life can be amazing afterwards, gave a lot of people hope. But if you don't have those conversations because you don't show up as your whole self, you don't feel like it's appropriate, you don't want other people to go there, you're just missing out on that deep connection that's actually what inspires people. Not a paycheck, not a promotion, but true connection. So I think that's the really powerful aspect in all of this.
Well, and then back to modeling,
Yeah.
Carrie, your team is going to feel safe to do
Yep.
that because you've
Exactly.
done it, not because you tell them it's safe. And
Yep. Yeah.
that's, we joke about, I co-lead the company with our CEO, Brian Welsh, and we joke about who's going to cry first, kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
funny, but it's so wonderful to be in a partnership with this masculine leader who is as vulnerable and heart forward, I would argue more than me, but has created kind of the safety
Yeah.
to be revealing and unedited and yeah, just real. The role that I'm in now is the first time as a leader I've given myself permission to be my whole self
Yeah.
versus what I would say like my work self and my non-work self before, and it's fun. And all the things you said, like I don't always get it right. I say things that I'm like, oh, that's not what I meant or something, but I don't live with regret.
Yeah.
I really I try hard because it's just not helpful. I learn from it, and I think about, okay, in that situation, how would I do it differently? But I believe in my world, every single thing had to happen the way it happened to get to today. And so it's just far more energizing for me to think about what I want to create from this moment forward versus, spending all this time wallowing in what I can never change. So
Yeah.
it's both.
Totally. And the interesting thing about this is that you don't want your employees doing those same things, right? Wallowing
No,
in what can never change. And so it's crazy that we have these expectations of our employees when we don't realize, like, hey, we're in the same exact situation. I bet you what you just said there, dozens of your employees have felt the exact same thing. And I think that's just
totally.
such a revealing thing for leaders. Like, okay, it's not just you. Everybody is dealing with this work self and my real self and my family self and who I want to really be in the future because I don't like these things about myself. And we all are just humans just grappling with those same types of questions and issues. And that's where the powerful connection can happen. So good for you for really exploring that.
Well, thank you. And I also, I think I believe that my children are some of my best teachers
Yes.
because, it's really interesting leading other adults. It's very different leading children, and especially children that are really smart and thoughtful and empathetic and opinionated and, becoming adults
Yep.
themselves. And so it's fun because time with them has been the biggest gift of all. I would argue I don't really know that I knew them very well before
Yeah.
COVID. We saw each other in the evenings after dinner when I'd come home after commuting from work or on the weekends, but it was so busy. Everything was so busy, before.
Yep.
And to just like slow down. So now it's like, all right, what do we want to add back with intention versus like these full schedules that got
Yes.
cleared with COVID. So another gift. And then travel, right? I mean, I used to fly somewhere for an hour meeting, not literally, but sometimes literally. And it felt really critical to do that. And yeah, the power of in person can never be replaced with virtual. But I think we can all really evaluate best use of time, best use of being away from your
Yep.
family, or, the impact just like on my energy moving from place to place in the way that I used to. I'm not really even sure how I did it sometimes. Like it would just be back to back to back to back. And
Yep.
I know how I did it. I wasn't exercising or eating well. And, so some of those things just feel like non-negotiables now.
Yeah. Life is better when you're not hurtling, 500, 600 miles an hour through the air all the time in a tin can, basically. I'm with you.
And I'm still creating value, because
Exactly.
that's something that's really
Yeah.
important to me.
Of course.
And I can see now how both exist,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
idea of abundance. Like
Yeah.
there's enough time, energy, money. So when you can come at a decision from a place of abundance versus scarcity, I think the solutions, the options, the paths forward become different.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. Well, I know we only have a few more minutes before you have to run, but I do want to touch base on something that I know is really important to you, very important to me, and that's social innovation. And so I'd like to just talk for a few minutes on that because it is such an important topic. Can you talk a little bit about what social innovation is and why you think it's so important for leaders to invest in it?
Yeah, well, and it's actually a great tie-in from this idea of abundance.
Yeah.
So, we're a public benefit corp, and part of that was because Mindful the magazine had been a nonprofit, and Life Cross Training had been a for-profit entity, but certainly measured some of our success based on impact. And so it felt great when we were thinking about what's the ideal structure for these two companies to come together and move forward with. And the idea is yes, we want to make money. We have investors and we want to remain a healthy, vibrant, thriving financially business. But also, we wake up in the morning to help people live better lives. And so impact was also part of that. So for me, when I think about social innovation, it's about being able to take the power of business and the innovation, the creativity, the way to totally look at old problems, things that have kind of been burdensome to groups for many years, and to like explode everything that we've thought about them before and create new. And so I just think that social innovation it's necessary. It's been happening. Leaders like yourself have been thinking about it, but we're just seeing it and naming it because investors, leaders, people who want to join teams, I think they're looking to do more in the world than just make enough money to pay the bills, or to make more than enough money to pay the bills, and that being the way that they measure success. I want to leave the world better than when I found it, right? I want, to make an impact. And, I think a lot about equity and creating a workplace that is not only diverse, but really supports populations that are underrepresented right now in a way that they feel welcome and invited and equal. So I think that social innovation for me is just it's kind of a name that we're all agreeing to place on work that's been done for many, many years by leaders before me, but is being valued differently because it can be more about money, impact, the environment, social change, social inequity. Those things are important. And so the fact that we get to build businesses that can also be profitable around that is just exciting. And I've decided I no longer want to put time into a business that doesn't think about, something bigger than just the bottom line, just profit as a measure of success.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I like the term because you can find your niche in it, right? So
Yeah.
Stony is an employee-owned company. And so my social innovation really is about this whole idea of how do you help the middle class and lower middle class create real wealth. And we all know that that comes through ownership, right? We know it as being
Yeah.
business leaders, as being business owners, that is how real wealth is generated. And so when you have the opportunity to own a piece of the company and a meaningful piece of the company as an individual contributor within an organization, we're really trying to address this whole idea that everybody should be able to share in the success of the company, not just the few at the top. I think it's ridiculous that CEOs make 350 that
Yeah.
times more than the average employee. And that's a huge problem. And it's going to cause the system to break, and it is breaking. But that's where my social innovation gets to come in. And so I love it because you can find your niche. It doesn't mean that you have to fix every problem in the world that's out there. You can't. You can say, this is what we stand for as an organization. This is what we believe in. And this is what we're going to, live by, our values that we're going to live by, where we're going to put our money. And I think that's really a powerful thing. So I love this term, and I love the way that you can just find your own little niche in it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of consumers are using that as a
Yes.
filter, right? Investors are using it as a filter. So I think it's becoming mainstream in a way that more and more individuals are using it as a lens to make decisions where I want to work, where I want to lead, where I want to buy, where I want to invest. And you're totally right. Like how to define social innovation is so open. It's cool to be among peers because we're all doing our own pieces and like what lights us up, what gets us up when things feel hard or what makes us think differently when problems kind of keep coming up.
Yep. I totally agree. All right. Well, I know our time is up, and I could talk to you about this for
It's
days.
been so fun. Thank you. I love
Uh,
this. I love this. So
Absolutely.
thank you for inviting
Absolutely.
me.
Well, thank you. So before you go, where can people find you? How can people find
Oh
you? How
yeah.
can people find Mindful Communications?
So Brenda at mindful.org is probably the easiest way to reach me. And mindful.org is our website. And, we're always looking for businesses that want to support their teams, in ways that could line up with our work. And so there's a mindful at work kind of in the nav bar on our website if you want to see more about that, but also reach out. And I'm on LinkedIn. Jacobsen is SEN. I went from Johnson, Brenda Johnson. Don't have to spell any of that, but married a Danish man who gave me a, unique spelling of my
An
last name. But
Ian.
yep. But yeah, so I would love, I spend most of my time talking to companies that, want to think differently about supporting the overall well-being and mental health of their team. So if that is interesting to you, please reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I'll include all that in the show notes too. So, Brenda, it's just been lovely to have you on the show. Thank you so
Oh,
much for
thank
spending
you,
time with me
Mary.
today. Well, hang tight, everyone. I'll be right back. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that interview. So much fun. We could have kept talking for hours. With that, I will leave you to your day. I hope you have a great one. I look forward to hosting you on next week's Advice from a CEO and Reflect Forward. And as always, if you like this podcast, please feel free to like it, subscribe to it, write a review, rate it. It's always very helpful. And don't forget to check out my YouTube channel where my Advice from a CEO episodes live now, so you can see that full content whenever you would like. All right, take care. Have a great day. See you next week.